Hey guys, welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I typically do reviews and reactions to things on the news, politics, TV shows, things like that. Today I'm doing my first review on Married at First Sight. I have been watching the first episodes religiously. I hopped on a little late and, well, obviously late because this is my first review of the season. We're about 6 or 7 episodes into the season now, but wow. Very extensive. I typically read notes when I'm doing my review because I kind of type everything in chronological order so I don't miss anything, because these episodes are 2 hours long, so it's really hard to try and remember every single detail when there's a lot that's going on. So bear with me. If you see me looking over, I'm looking at my laptop, and it's kind of windy right now, so there's noise, ignore that. I will talk over it. So let's hop into it. Immediately, it's obvious / clear that Haley and Jacob are just not gonna work out. She said that he got in a little argument with her due to her kind of lying about being with only the girls when she was with the men and the girls, excluding him. And she just felt really uncomfortable because he was saying that he thought she had a boyfriend back home just due to the way that she was acting with him. After I watched the last episode, I was like, it's just clear that either she's just not into him specifically or she's just not into the process. I just feel like she was not ready to go on the show and get married at first sight. She said it's been 7 years since her last relationship, so maybe she needs some time to gather her feelings, gather where she's at mentally, and not just dive into a marriage like that. I just also feel like it has to do with their lack of compatibility. It's very obvious that they're not really made for each other, but they're still trying this process. But Lord, like, she literally changed her seat on the plane due to all of this because she just didn't feel comfortable sitting with him. Now we've seen that all the couples have left the honeymoon from Vegas and have moved into their little apartment within the same complex. We first see Brianna and Vincent, and she's immediately telling him to leave his shoes by the door and that he needs to shape up his beard. And it's kind of just like he's already mentioned to her that he feels like she's kind of bossy, but also her friend / family has planted that into his head at this point. So I feel like every little thing he's like, oh, she's bossy, she's bossy. She tells me what she wants. I'm like, yeah, she's kind of assertive. Is that the right word to use for bossy in regards to the relationship? And I kind of feel bad because it can seem like they have like a good relationship or that they could do good in the long run. But like she makes little pointed comments because like she knows what she wants and she's a strong woman, but like he's just not really feeling that aspect, at least. Otherwise, they seem really, really good. Virginia and Eric are in their place and settling in. Eric immediately goes in and just like, hey, so let's just talk about this. You've never been married. You never lived with someone. I have. There's just a different dynamic when you live with somebody. And she's just like, and like, it's just very obvious in almost every scene that they're in, the differences in their age. I'm not saying that you can't be with someone who's 10, 20 years your senior. I'm not saying that's how big their difference is, but you can very much see the difference in their age because she's like in her late 20s. He's in his late 30s, from my understanding. She still wants to party. She still wants to go out with her friends. And he's just like, I'm ready to settle down, essentially. And it's just like they're at little different places. He's been married before, so he has that experience versus her. And like every time I feel like he wants to talk about something serious, she's just like just very enthusiastically nodding, but I don't know if she's comprehending what he's telling her. Unfortunately, we see Paige move into her place and it's alone because Chris said he was going to get a flight to Chicago. And I'm like, this man has been causing chaos, wreck, havoc since this man has gone onto the show. I just don't even know how they messed up her pairing so bad. I feel so bad for her. I feel like she needs to, or I wish she could have a process all over again, but this is just too chaotic. I feel like everyone else had like maybe somewhat of like an actual chance of getting like someone they're into, but Chris from the jump was just too much, and I just feel for her, because imagine moving in alone versus everyone else actually moving in with their pair, even if they're not exactly up there yet, if that makes sense. We also see Ryan and Clara, and I'm just like, they're just not compatible to me. I'm not saying they're like the level of Haley and Jacob and Chris and Paige. That's a whole nother thing. They just seem like friends more than anything. And they were just having a discussion / argument about like the different times you go to bed. Okay, that person goes to bed earlier, you go to bed this time. It doesn't really make a difference. But I just feel like they're just not there on that romantic level. They're just more of like friends and maybe bring out the best in each other on that aspect, but like platonic, not so much romantic. Haley and Jacob, they were a little hostile when they got in, and Jacob was just coming, like they walked into they were having the argument in the kitchen / living room. Sorry for that stammering, because I was just like trying to remember. They walked and it was just like jabs. So Jacob told her that she is acting like she has a boyfriend. She's offended by that. And it's clear that she's just not ready for it, being with him or maybe anyone. And Jacob was just like, he told the matchmakers that he did not want to be paired with someone who was high strung. And she took offense to that making sense, because he's like taking jabs at her, and eventually like, oh, sorry, high anxiety. And she's like, you're diagnosing me. And he's just like, I don't care, I don't know. To the point that they just don't sleep in the same bed the first night in their apartment. They sleep in separate beds. There's like a guest room. So I'm like, wow, y'all got set up in a 2-bedroom. That's really nice. But yeah, it's just, I don't think they're going to be there for very long, in the sense of like lasting much longer. But apparently the next morning or that night, he apologized to her for what he said, but despite that, she left early to go pick up something, and he was not even out of bed yet. And I'm like, okay, I guess like every time they're on the screen, I'm gonna be kind of like bored, but either way, I still want to talk about them because they're still on the show. Virginia took Eric to her place to show her pets, decor, the pictures, and he's allergic to cats. I am allergic to cats. I can only imagine what that's like to be married with someone with cats. And I'm like, homegirl, you got a cat with homegirl, you got a cat with carpet and a man who's allergic to cats. Not saying she knew that before them. I'm like, how are you gonna move past that? And she's like, well, I need to, my cats come first. And she was saying it's not a death wish. He's not really allergic. And they kind of were like going back and forth in my eyes. I almost felt like the scene focused too much on that. So I was like, is this an argument? Is this something really worth arguing about? Like if you're not allergic to something, specifically that extent, you won't understand. But for her to tell him that he's not allergic, even though he was saying that, he said he took allergy medicine beforehand, and Lord, that is an investment. But like, it was just like a weird, like, okay, like, are y'all good? Next, we see Haley take Jacob to her place, and she has like open reservations about the situation. She's kind of just like, yeah, like we're moving forward, but I still not really sure where it's gonna like land or what's gonna happen with us. Like, okay, it is what it is, but I'm not really sure what's gonna happen with this. And he was being kind of weird. He was like picking up her thing from like her suitcase and seeing if it was like too short or not. He opened up her closet and made a comment like, this is a bit Karen. It's a little Karen. Like, from him, what does that mean? Like, what does a little Karen mean from you? Like, are you being offensive? And maybe if that's the case, why would you say that if it's offensive? It was just weird. I'm like, this man's different. Everyone to each their own, but it's just a little different. I understand he enjoys the 80s, but does he need to talk about it all the time? It just could be me. Eric shows Virginia his place next, and it's nice. I'm like, homeboy, got money. Okay, like some of them are like really nice places. And the more that I see them together, I can like see their age gap more, like I mentioned in the beginning of this review. I started to like not really mess with him too much after his argument with Chris, or like one-sided argument, but I do think he means well in regards to her, or like someone he wants long-term. Next, we see Jacob's place, and it's definitely his style scene with his 80s sunglasses, his neon panels and stuff. But then Haley's like, I don't like neon. I'm like, what is it that you don't like about it? I mean, I guess that's like a loud color. It's a loud spectrum of colors or something. But like, what do you not like about it? And he's like, oh, you don't like it? And I'm like, I don't know what y'all put on your questionnaire quiz thing about being paired with someone, but y'all are just not working to me in my mindset. But they're there, and they just seem hesitant to me. They just did not mesh at all. Ryan shows Clara his place. And at first I'm like, oh, okay, it's a nice place. It's clean. The counters are clean. And he opened his cupboard, and the cupboard was this way. I don't know if y'all peeped that, but the thing was literally falling down. Things were falling. Things were just tossed in there. I'm like, okay. So when you meet him, you think he's clean, proper, nice, but then you get into his house and like start opening up some cabinets. You can see he's like a low-key, messy person. His drawers have things just tossed in there. They're not folded. There's like messy things on his cabinets. But when we go to her place, we see that she's very organized and clean, which kind of just shows the dynamics of them. I'm not gonna say it's like a make or break, but imagine having a really tidy person versus someone who's not tidy. So it's like a really hard mesh, because you're gonna get annoyed by them being a clean freak and then the person not cleaning up. So kind of interesting how that would be in the long term for them. At this point, we start seeing the pastor visit each of the couples. Each pastor visit was different from the other, and I was like, okay, so either really interesting or not. So first the pastor visits Brianna and Vincent, and the conversation started out good. It was with them discussing the things that they like about each other, her opinions on him having like his own business and stuff. And it was just like very like husband and wife already, even though they just met like a couple weeks ago. The pastor asked about like possible issues in the relationship, and like he was like, I want respect. I want respect from her. Sometimes she has like a certain tone when she's talking to me. She comes off some type of way, and I can see that because I've seen that in some of the things, maybe because the dramatic of the music, or maybe he points it out and rewinds it. So I can kind of see what he's talking about, but I don't know if like, yeah, I don't really know if that's just how she is all the time. I don't know if like he just doesn't like that. Like that's just his pet peeve. So for him, he's pointing it out a lot more. It's really hard to tell, but it's just like that's like their main downfall from his perspective. Whereas hers, it's like him like tossing things around or not being clean or anything like that. Next, we see Virginia and Eric, and they somewhat have a disagreement about their dynamics in regards to like relationship and boundaries. She's younger, so she still wants to go out and party, drink, see her friends. And she's talking about how she wants to pass out on her guy friends' couches after a night of drinking, how she doesn't want to call him when she gets somewhere. She doesn't want to text him when she reaches somewhere, leaves. I'm like, that's just like common, I don't want to say courtesy, but that's just what I do. I'm like, hey, I arrived. Hey, I'm home. I do that with my friends. So I feel like as a husband or a partner, you'd want that from someone, especially if it's like a Friday night at 3 a.m. or so, because she obviously is going to be doing that. She goes out a lot apparently. So I feel like you need to kind of do that, or that's just like a thing of like respect in a sense. And she's just like, he's controlling. He's overly controlling. He wants to manage my life. I'm like, I don't think that's what it is. It's just that you guys have different dynamics, and like he just wants to know where you're at out of like safety in a sense. Although again, she does say she has a lot of guy friends, so he's not really down with that. But for her to pass out a guy friend's couch as a married woman, girl, call yourself an Uber. Like, why would you do that? Even the pastor was like, no, like if my wife did that, I'd be confused. So Chris did not allow for production to record their conversation. And I'm like, did Chris know what show this is? Does he know that he signed up for a reality TV show where you express your feelings, where you're mic'd up all the time, where you have to talk about these things in front of a camera? Maybe it's different when it's like your first time going on, then you have to adjust to it, but most people just know that like that's what it is. Like it's very invasive in your personal business. So the fact that he's taking off the mics, he's telling the cameras they can't come in just for after. No. So yeah, it just infuriates me. They cut their microphones, and after the meeting, Paige calls the producers to tell the producer that Chris told her that he loves his ex and wants to get divorced with Paige. He already spoke to a divorce attorney apparently, and I just feel so bad for her. I feel so bad for her. I just feel so sad because like he strung her along. I feel like he knew what he wanted from the beginning, or he knew once that whole pregnancy thing happened. The timelines are really messy. He knew what he was signing up for when he got that girl pregnant. I know he explained the girl had like a family situation and he was comforting her. Sex is not comforting. Getting her pregnant is not comforting. And then getting married with someone you didn't know, and this all imploding all at the same time. But that's just what it is. Brianna takes Vincent to her house, and they seem like high spirits at first, but I was scared because I saw it in the trailer they're going to argue about something, but it seemed really well. I feel like they will last out of the couples despite like, again, their differences. Vincent is kind of like, when he got to her place, because her closet was imploded with shoes, imploded with clothes, and I feel like as a husband and you're seeing your wife have a closet like that, you're kind of like, how are we going to share a closet space? Is there gonna be space for me? How will we manage this? And I feel like that's just like what it is. But sometimes men are like that too, but that's what Vincent's place is about this. We meet Paige, and Lord, she's alone when she's with the pastor. I'm just like, where is Chris? Chris has embarrassed himself. I don't wanna say he's embarrassed her, because some of her actions in regards to it, I feel like she was really just trying to try with the process and move forward with it, because it just really sucks because like everyone else seemed to be doing okay and they weren't. So I feel like she was just really trying, but everyone else was like, no, like she should have been left, and she still really tried. But imagine she showed up to the pastor alone, because this man, no one knew where his whereabouts were. No one even knew if he was gonna pull up or not. And she reflects on the wedding to the pastor, and I'm immediately embarrassed because I'm like, I don't want to hear about these yikes details if y'all remember the wedding and everything after that. It's really bad. I don't need to get into it. And then she admits that they've had sex every day with no protection. And the pastor's like, Lord, what do you, and then she's like, yes, hey, I got my period. I don't care that she got her period. That's still just very reckless. I know that it was her husband, but it was in the midst of everything going on. I feel like every day they were having an argument, or they're on a different page about stuff, and you still continue to do that. I don't really know. I don't want to judge either of them, but it's just like, the whole thing was just really bad, and I feel bad. That's it. Chris pulls up. He's kind of just like, I'm like, he did not just wave. He didn't even like, I'm sorry, I'm late, I'm sorry. Like he just is like, hey. And I'm like, why are you here at this point? They have continued and started it. They have started this without you. Now you're here, and now the tone's different. The pastor's already judging you. This is just a mess. The pastor lets Chris know that Paige let him in on everything. And I'm just at a loss for words, because when the pastor was asking him like some pointed questions, Chris is like, I don't feel comfortable asking that. I don't think I'm the place to answer that. I don't think I want to talk about this. I'm like, okay, Chris is just a closed book mostly, and just needs to get off the show. He's really irritating me in my soul. The pastor let Chris know straight up that like, why would you have sex with her if you don't want to be with her? And that was what he was kind of saying no to. Like, I don't want to answer that. Paige started to vent and said that she got the short end of the stick in regards to this process, and that she put all of her heart into this, and she had her intention straight from the jump. And Chris is like, I didn't, and looked offended. I was like, do you even deserve to be offended by any of this? I thought he was gonna start crying, because he's been crying the past episodes. And I'm like, okay. Chris tells him that the right thing to do allegedly is to divorce, and so it's happening allegedly. And the pastor's like, I'm just not gonna argue this. Clearly this is not a good relationship. I'm not even gonna try and like save this. It's done. Like, I'm not going to. When the pastor leaves, Chris got real close to Paige. He's like, he got really close to her. I was like, the fact that you got that close, that you were that comfortable to get close to someone that you've hurt and that you've made look stupid that close, and you don't feel dumb about it. And I was confused. And as he was whispering, she was smiling. And I was like, what are you smiling about? That this man, like, this is so bad. And like, eventually she's like, okay, we're gonna, no. And she says that he told her that he was afraid of falling in love with her. And she was like, all right, it's done. Like, they just left, they drove off. And I was like, 1, why would you tell her that? 2, why was she spying when that happened? 3, just get out. Like, I was just so irritated by the whole situation. It was good TV, it is good TV, but Lord, like, I just don't understand this like mental gymnastics that he's doing to her. We see Haley and Jacob talk to the pastor. There's no connection for them. She's saying that the negative remarks that he's made towards her has made her even push away more. I'm like, girl, you were kind of like that already before that. I understand that he said some negative things, but she already just wasn't into it before that. But I guess that just kind of made her scurry a little bit more. She's saying how she's not really like, about like physical touch, but like they've had sex. But then I think she said they were drunk when that happened. But like, it's just, I'm not interested in the relationship at all. And I just get bored watching them. The pastor shows up at Ryan and Clara's place. And they're saying how they're like, they don't disagree on anything. They're really good, but they're scared that they're really good and like where the disagreement's gonna come from. And then they kind of talk about how they haven't had sex and like they're just taking it slow. But it looks like she does, but he doesn't. He's going on again about how he's never said I love you, and she has like kind of like questionable thoughts about that. I just feel like they're on different pages. A little bit different than Jacob and Haley, just friend, platonic stage, but like they don't know if they need to be together, or they're kind of like hesitant to try. I don't know, it's just there's something off about them. I just see them like being good because they haven't argued, or at least from what I'm seeing, but just not on that level that it needs to be in order to be husband and wife, I think. And we get to the end of the episode and things kind of got heated for it only being about 5 minutes. So Vincent pops the champagne and it spilled on the floor a little bit on his shirt, and his wife, Brianna, bent down to clean it up. He kind of made a comment like, oh shoot, and she's like, wow, real Vincent of you. And I just wouldn't say that, especially when like they barely know each other, kind of, but like I wouldn't say that like, oh wow, that's really you, or that's like a thing of you whenever you mess up, or you like just, I wouldn't point that out. It's like an obvious maybe, I don't really know if she knows that. And you could tell that that alone is what kind of triggered him. And then like shit popped off. He's like, that's the first time it ever happened. And she's like, there's a first time for everything. And it's like, why are you making these comments to your husband? And you know, he kind of is like saying you're making comments. He says that your tone's different, but you're still continuing to do that, even though he's expressed this in front of her, to the pastor, in front of her. So it's like she knows that he's not really into some of these things that she says, but she kind of continues to do it. It's kind of like, God, girl, fix it, please. But the energy shifted, and she could tell. She was like, oh, let's share a closet. He's like, nah. And he's like, are you good? And they kind of get pulled into like a closet, I think, or the bathroom. And he's like, I don't like the smart comment you made. And when he opens the door, she's like, I don't get it. I don't even know what happened. I'm like, girl, like just reflect. Like you've only been in the house for maybe about 5 minutes according to the camera. Like think what has happened, run back through it, but she's just not getting it. And in the bed, he's like, I want respect from you. You made a comment about the champagne thing. I feel like you disrespect me. I feel like you belittled me. And she's like, it's none of that. It was joking. He's like, I don't know. I'm just saying like, that's how I feel. So, and she's like, it's not that. And like, they did not get to an agreement, y'all. It just did not end well. He got his backpack and left. I do see like, I knew what the comment was. It wasn't even like a, oh, like why is he mad? Like I knew what it was about. So I feel like that self-awareness is maybe not there for like when she makes comments. I don't know. But I feel really bad because I just didn't think he was gonna literally get his backpack and leave. Like he left. I said, oh yeah. But long review. Again, these episodes are about 2 hours. Let me know what y'all think of the season and how you think it's gonna end out, and talk to you in the comments. Bye.